All right, good morning, everyone. This presentation is brought to you by California State Parks Off-Highway Motor Vehicle Recreation Division. It is intended for educational purposes only, and the content is subject to change. Applicants and grantees must consult the regulations related to their project year. Please contact your grant administrator if you have any questions. Contact info can be found at ohv.parks.ca.gov by clicking Grants at the top of the page and then Grants Contacts in the submenu. You can also email the Grants team at ohv.grants@parks.ca.gov. Right. There you go, Matt.
All right. Thank you for attending our OHV Audits virtual training session today. I'm Matt Walmond, and I'm the Compliance Supervisor for the Grants Unit. It's fantastic to see how much of a large turnout we have today. It's very cool to get everybody on here and to get more information about the audits process. If you have any questions regarding a current slide that we are currently presenting on, please feel free to ask using the chat feature. Alternatively, you could hold on to your questions until the end of the presentation during a Q&A session. So you can raise your hand at that time, and then we will give you the opportunity to speak. In the event that we're unable to address any questions during the presentation today, we will ensure to email all registered participants with the answers afterward. If you submitted a question prior to the training, our audit staff have looked to integrate that answer into that question into a relevant slide within the presentation. This training session will be recorded and made accessible on our grant resources page for future reference. With the logistics covered, I'm delighted to introduce our presenters for today, Audit Chief Jasdeep Apal and Audit Manager Sandeep Magnet. I apologize if I said your guys' names incorrectly. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for presenting us. We also have Audrey Liu that's going to be helping with respond to any chat questions you guys have. And like Matt said, if anything we cannot address today, we'll be sure to email answers out to you guys. And then we'll also have our email address at the end. If there's any questions you have related to the audit process, you can always reach out to us. Can you please go to the next slide? As you can see, our agenda is quite full today. I'm not going to read it to you guys in the sake of time, but I will give you guys a couple of seconds, kind of look over it, and then we'll move on to the next slide after that. But there, like you can see here, we're hoping we can cover as many topics as we can today and make sure we get you guys informed of what the audit process is. On to the next slide. Thank you. Our audits are mandated through the California Code of Regulations and the Public Resources Code. The Code of Regulations requires us to look at 20% of all grantees annually. Some of you may not have been selected in some of the cycles. However, we're hoping to get to everybody as we cycle through these each year. Public Resources Code also requires us to look at law enforcement entities for financial and performance audits every 5 years. Next slide, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandeep Magnet, and I'm the audit manager over the grants unit here at Parks. As we covered in the last slide, the law enforcement grantees must be audited once every 5 years, and we are required to audit 20% of the grantees annually during the project performance period and up to the 3 years following the OHMBR division approved final payment or project completion, whichever is later. We also look at the age of the grant to see if the grant is within the record retention period to select an audit. Sometimes we select a grantee for an audit if we are coming to your area to audit a nearby grantee. And the another factor in selection is the grant amount. If the larger the grant amount is, the higher the risk is. So we may select a few grantees based on the grant amount they received during grant performance period. Periodically, we receive a special audit request from the program. If the OHMBR division has any concern regarding the performance with the grantee during the project performance period. If you are selected for an audit, we will give you enough time to prepare for the audit. Normally, we will give you about 2 weeks notice to prepare for the entrance meeting. What we ask from you that you assign us a key contact employee who has knowledge about the project and its record to help the auditors in fulfilling the document request during the audit. We also ask that you provide us a clear audit trail and supporting document specific to the project. Documentation must clearly support the costs claimed and costs incurred and accurately reflected in the financial transactions. We will talk more about the type of document that provides a good audit trail in the next few slides. And if you are unsure about any of the supporting documents that we need during the grant performance period, please rely on your grant administrator for a clarification. It helps a lot to reduce the risk by the time we look at your records. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Sandy. So our audit objective is to review and take a look at you guys' reliability of your financial information, the systems you have in place to identify, measure, and classify that information, and to make sure those systems that you guys do have are in line with laws, regulations, and the grant agreement provisions. And you know, some of the most important parts is how are you safeguarding the assets that you've been purchasing with the grant, and are the costs eligible, and is the program compliance. Next slide. So the phases of the OHV audit is, first we'll review the grant information, then we'll give you guys a notification of the audit. And like Sandeep said, we give you a few weeks notice that we're going to have the entrance conference. During the entrance conference, we'll review our objectives that we're going to go over and ask for who our point of contact is and where we can get the source information for the items we're going to be looking at. And during field work, we'll be performing testing. We may do site visits depending on the type of audit and the complexity. But during field work, we'll be working with the grantee. We're open to answer any questions you guys have at that time. You know, no question is too small or too big to ask us. We're more than willing to share any information we have with you guys. We want you to be successful. Then once we're done with our testing, we'll have a pre-exit conference where we go over all the issues that we've identified, if any. However, you know, during the fieldwork phase, we're hoping to keep you updated on what we've been looking at. So the pre-exit conference should not come as a surprise. Then we'll issue our audit report. The audit report will be issued to the OHMVR division, which in turn will share with the grantee. We also have started a new process working with the OHMVR division as an appeal process. Matt will be covering that at the end. Let you guys know that, you know, we're not always correct with what our findings are, and we want to give you the opportunity to appeal any findings we come up with. Next slide. So here's a listing of the type of records we look for. You know, job codes, authorization, work order numbers, identifying OHV projects. So anything you're claiming, we may ask for evidence that exists. It's a show me process that we have. So if you're saying some or you're asking for some, we're going to ask for that information and some type of evidence. Any labor reports showing salaries and benefits and the employees' names and positions. Timesheets. Timesheets are important to make sure that they are approved by a supervisor and reviewed by somebody before they're being submitted. Hourly rates need to tie back to the timesheets. Invoices, credit card statements, and canceled checks for purchases. And vehicle record and mileage logs and relevant policies related to that. And because we want to make sure that what you're asking for is fully supported. Next slide. I think this is you, Sandy.
Right. So during the field work, we conduct an entrance conference meeting with you. Our entrance conference meeting is normally conducted through Microsoft Teams. During that meeting, we will go over the audit objectives, scope, documentation needed for the audit, and time frame to complete the audit. And we will also establish the main contacts from the grantee for the audit. The fieldwork begins right after the entrance conference meeting. We will send you an email to request a specific document request list based on the sample selection. Due to any limitation, if the grantee is unable to send us the records electronically, we will work with you. And we will do a site visit to review your records in person. And right around the entrance meeting, we will send you a the questionnaire for you to fill out to understand your internal control processes over the OHV grant funds. The question in the questionnaire will be relevant to the OHV funds only and the type of cost that you have claimed during the grant performance period under audit. This audit is a financial performance audit, so the audit team will determine if the cost charged to the grant funds were allowable, supported, and properly allocated and in compliance with the grant's requirement and regulations. Once the audit is underway, the auditor will review your procedures of tracking and reporting the grant expenditures. Audit team generally review specific cost expenditures such as a labor cost, contract purchases, equipment use expenses, equipment purchases, and other cost or the indirect cost. Like I said before, the audit procedure, audit testings are based on the sample method. So our initial document request list will be based on a sample selected. However, if we find any issues during the initial sample selection review, we may expand the sample size and request for additional documents for testing. Next slide, please. Like Jasdeep said earlier, we keep an open line of communication with the grantee during the audit. And as the audit progresses, and if we find any discrepancy, any issues, anything is unclear, we communicate that with the grantee to get clarification or additional document requests if the grantee has any other documents. Any preliminary issues or potential findings will be discussed with the grantee during the audit. Next slide, please. For best record keeping practices, these are some of the steps that you can take to ensure that you have the required documents that will be requested during an audit. We suggest that you retain all project-related costs for reimbursement, match, and indirect costs. Match cost shall be documented the same way as the reimbursement cost. For labor cost, document all labor costs, including in-house employees, costs claimed under reimbursement costs, match costs, and volunteer hours. And we'll go more into detail in the next few slides in terms of what type of documents are required for in-house labor and volunteer labor. For transportation and equipment use expenses, keep a logbook that identifies the operator, date of the activity, items that transported, mileage charge, and signature of the operator. The record retention policy for the OHV grants are 3 years from the project agreement end date. And if there's an audit going on, the audit must complete and the audit report must be issued and the findings are resolved before you can destroy those, get rid of those records. Next slide, please. So one of the main area that we review or perform testing is the labor cost. And typical supporting document that we request from grantee for the labor cost are timesheets, OHV activity logs, and overtime slips. Labor cost, like I said before, for the reimbursement cost and match cost should be documented in the same way. We want to see the timesheets are certified by employee and approved by supervisor. And please make sure that the timesheets are reviewed and by a supervisor or another authorized person and not approved and signed by the employee themselves. In the past, we have had situations where we have seen the employees have approved their own timesheets, which is not acceptable. Timesheet or OHV log should also describe the OHV activity completed by employee, date, number of hours worked, and once again, it needs to be signed and approved by the supervisor. If your entity has a specific OHV project code or OHV activity, one second, please. If you have a specific OHV project code for OHV activities, it should be listed on the timesheet to distinguish the regular hours and the OHV hours. Cost of salaries and wages must be calculated according to your wages and salary scale, and may include benefits such as a vacation, sick leave, or social security contribution, etc. And please refer to your regulation section 4970.08 for more information in terms of what type of cost that you can claim under the labor cost. Overtime costs may be allowed if the grantee has established policy in place. We will examine your overtime policies and procedure if the overtime was charged to the grant. Additionally, we review your salary report, labor cost, or payroll register to verify the hourly rate charge for in-house employees. The cost that grantee claimed during the cost that grantee claimed should match with the payroll records. Another important point to keep in mind that the cost should be actual cost, and the hours should be the actual hours worked. Estimation and approximations are not allowable. Next slide, please. This is another area we review and test during the labor cost when we analyze the volunteer labor cost. Volunteer labor hours can be claimed for match cost only. The volunteer hourly rate that you can charge is available at the independentsector.org's website. The volunteer hourly rate shall not exceed the independent sector's California volunteer hourly rate. The rate should be used that is available at the beginning of the grant performance period. For example, if the grant period starts from September 1st, 2024 through August 31st, 2025, the rate should be used from the 2024 years. A link to the independent sector's website, independentsector.gov's website, can be found on the OHVR division's website. To claim the volunteer hours, grantee is required to submit OHV activity logs. And on the OHV activity logs, grantee is required to document these elements such as date, hours, location, and the duties performed. It must be signed by volunteer and supervisor. And the OHV logs can be prepared daily or weekly. Next slide, please. More areas that we normally perform testing are equipment use for nonprofits entities. This is the area we want to see adequate supporting documents for equipment use cost. We have seen in the past that grantee was unable to provide us the market rental rate at the time of the use of the equipment, or adequate logbooks or source document to support the cost claimed. Make sure you keep good records and a logbook that identifies the operator, date of activity performed, miles driven, and signature of the operator. And you can claim the IRS mileage rate at the time of the grant cycle, and that can be charged to the grant. So you can claim up to 150 miles for the equipment operation during the grant activity. For equipment transportation, you can charge up to 100 miles each direction. And for the grantee purchase equipment, a use fee can be charged. And you have to provide us a local fair market rental rate to charge that rate. And any equipment that is purchased with the OHV fund, a use fee is an eligible cost. A per mile for the cost may be charged up to 100 miles per 100 miles, and regular maintenance can be charged if the services are provided by a licensed sprayer facility. Next slide, please. Another area we test is heavy equipment used for nonprofits. Fuel costs can be claimed for actual costs for the project activity only. Tires and major repairs can be claimed with an OHMVR approval. Typical findings that we have seen around this cost category is the mileage log. It does not have the description, or it's lacking the dates or the activity or the name of the operator. A logbook and tracking documents are required, and the like I mentioned in the previous slide, the elements include are the name of the operator, dates, mileage driven, and the signature of the operator. For OHV program purchase equipment, a use fee, like I mentioned before, the use fee is an eligible cost, but the regular maintenance can be claimed with the licensed sprayer facility. Next slide, please. All right, so heavy equipment tires under the equipment use for all other grantees. Heavy equipment and tires major repair may be requested after justifying the need and approval from the OHMVR division. Fuel costs can be charged up to the actual cost during the project activities. Transportation costs for moving equipment and heavy equipment for the normal storage location to the project site can be claimed. Like I said before, the logbook and source document documenting all the elements that I've mentioned in the previous slide are required. And grantee can charge the use fee and provide us a supporting document that shows the local fair market rental rate at the time of the use during the grant performance period is required. And any equipment purchased with the OHV, grantee cannot claim the use fee. But regular maintenance can be charged to the grant as required by the manufacturer recommendations. Next slide, please. Another area we select for testing if the grantee has contract in place is contracts. Maintaining the supporting document for this cost category is the key, and these are some of the common example of documents that we request during the audit. And they are bid records if the contract is required to be competitively bid, contract selection document when the management team made the final selection for the contract. So we ask that you provide us the resolution or the meeting minutes, and we will request for the final executed contract copy or any change order if there was any changes to the contract. If your contract is required to have a bond or insurance, we request for those records. And as you make any payments to the contractor, we require a copy of those invoices, any progress billing or payments or evidence of payment. And we also ask you, if you have a subcontractor, please provide us a copy of the recorded notice of completion, etc. Next slide, please. So key points to remember from this training that the grant recipient should maintain records for all direct costs, match costs, and indirect costs. If grantee has any eligible unclaimed direct costs that went unclaimed, we can review the unclaimed cost and may be used to offset any disallowances. Access hard match costs can be claimed and used to offset disallowance in the direct or reimbursement cost. Grantee may receive up to 15% of indirect cost of the direct funded amount. The current expenditure workbook does a pretty good job automatically calculating the allowable indirect cost. During our audit, we have during the audit, if we find any indirect cost item claimed under the reimbursement costs or match cost, we will move that cost to the indirect cost category if the grantee has not fully claimed the 15% indirect cost. And also, I want to mention during our audit, if the auditor the auditor can request for supporting document to verify the indirect cost claimed by the grantee. Next slide, please. On this slide, we have shared some examples of ineligible costs. There's a list available on the in section 4970.09 in the grant regulation. But this is just some of the common areas that we see during the audit. They are, outside a grantee cannot claim costs outside of the project performance period, and the cost not associated with the project description, use fee for the equipment purchased through OHV funds, and the grantee is unable to provide timesheets, payment record, or OHV approval or incomplete documents, and the labor estimates. Once again, if you are in doubt during the grant performance period regarding any of the costs, I would recommend to talk to the grant administrator for guidance. Next slide, please. These are some of the examples of common findings we have discovered or seen in our recent audit. We see that grantee sometimes is unable to provide us the purchases under the material and supplies. We have seen that hourly rate claimed for the staff cost was estimated and included fringe benefits, and that was not the actual cost paid to the staff, so we had a concern or issue there. We have seen that the grantee claimed OHV overtime. The grantee claimed overtime from the program, but when we looked at their timesheet, it didn't show any overtime worked. Or hours claimed by grantee for in-house labor, but the timesheet provided by grantee does not mention any of the OHV activity worked on that day. The other areas we have seen issues are grantee claim duplicate cost. Grantee charged the same cost under two different areas. Other areas we have seen finding is the equipment use cost was claimed, but the supporting documents were lacking information, such as the missing mileage information, or the mileage had some errors, it was not calculated correctly. Claimed additional mileage, what should have claimed than what should have claimed, or the mileage log was missing beginning or ending mileage information. We come across this situation a lot where grantee purchase additional items that are not listed on the PCE, and when we ask the grantee to provide us an approval from the program, and they are unable to provide us any communication. So we recommend that anytime you're planning to purchase any item that is not listed on the PCE project cost estimate, please communicate with the OHMVR division and get their approval. And then once you have that documented in a writing or in an email, please save that email in your project OHV project file. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Cindy. So the duration of our audits are they vary depending on the complexity of what we're looking at. Most audits take 1 to 2 months. Some may take up to 5, depending on what we look at, what we need to request, if we need to make a site visit, or if there's any discrepancies of what's being claimed and the evidence being provided and the grantee needs more time. Also, we look at the type and the scope of the audit. Like I said, the complexity of the issues, availability of information, and actually availability of both parties. You guys are busy working on keep those OHV trails and areas available for California. So we know you guys are busy. So we try to work with you guys as well. And then also the number of grants and the grant years under review. Sometimes if we come out to you to audit, we may look at multiple grant years to make sure that we're doing our 30 or 20% that we need to do of each grantee. Next slide, please. Grant fraud, waste, and abuse. This is everybody's responsibility to be stewards of the funding that's being provided. We want to maintain public trust and keep us all out of the news. This is to help protect natural and fiscal resources. And we want you guys to be watchdogs for us. If you guys identify anything or come across any fraud, waste, or abuse, we have our email address at the end. We also recommend that you reach out to your grant administrators, because the sooner we catch that, the better off we are as a state, and to keep that grant money flowing and to keep those trails open and available to everybody. And some of the areas we look at is a violation of law, rules, and regulations, an abuse of authority, a gross waste of funds, and gross mismanagement of the grant money that's being provided to y'all. Next slide, please. And this is for you, Matt.
And hello, everybody. So this is our audits appeal process. The program regulations currently don't have an official process for filing an appeal for the audit report received. The division is looking to incorporate this process that you see on the screen into our next regulations packet. This process is based on the same process that we use, the agencies use if they are looking to appeal our intent to awards, and that is in our program regulations. So if your agency is looking to appeal the audit report received, the OHMVR division, you would look to submit a detailed narrative that clearly articulates the reasons for the appeal, including referencing the applicable statutes and regulation sections and other documentation that supports the appeal, and how the audit report should be modified. You must submit your appeal within 30 calendar days from the date the audit report was emailed to your agency. So it's when you received that audit report, not the date officially on the audit report. It will go based off of when you received it. The email shall be submitted to the OHMVR Division Deputy Director for email to ohvinfo@parks.ca.gov. And I just want to make sure you guys understand it's OHV info. This is different from our grant. So this email goes directly to the Deputy Director's office. Once that email is received, the division will respond within 60 calendar days following the filing of the appeal. There is the option to appeal the division deputy director's decision to the director of the Department of Parks and Rec as well. And so on the slide, you can see kind of the different steps. And again, this process is currently not in our regulations. We're looking to add it in the upcoming grant cycle, grant regulation packet. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Matt. We appreciate that. And at the end of the day, we want you guys to all be successful and utilizing the money and get reimbursed what you have eligible coming back to you. We make mistakes, and that's why we want to offer you guys the opportunity to appeal any decisions we make. However, throughout the audit, we will be updating you guys of what we come across, and that is an opportunity for you to push back as well. On the screen now, if you have any questions after this, there's the OHMVR division email address and the audit office email address. The audit office email address can also be used to report fraud, waste, and abuse that you come across. Or if you do reach out to us for fraud, waste, and abuse, we have some processes there to ensure that your confidentiality of the reporter. Next slide, please. And this is you guys' opportunity to ask any questions of us.
So at this point, if you'd like to ask a question to the auditors, just please raise your hand, and then our moderator, Debbie, will rock it and roll it and bring you up to the front. Make sure to unmute you and bring your questions to the group.
Hi, Joe. You can go ahead and ask your question.
All right, thank you. I saw that the volunteer rate from the independent sector mentioned you can use the rate that was at the start of the grant. So I always been using the rate that was in the application, which is usually a year before the grant starts. So I just want to verify. So it is the rate that the grant starts and not necessarily what is in the grant application.
It is, I'll answer that one, Cindy. So it's based off when we say grant, it's the grant cycle itself. So it'd be based off when you submitted the application in the system. So it's when the grant cycle begins. So for us, for this example, would be the date on March 4th is actually the grant cycle would start January 7th. So it'd been based off that information.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah.
Hi, James. You can go ahead and ask your question.
You might be muted, James.
James, are you there? If not, we'll circle back. Let's go to Neil Hamada. You can ask your question.
Hey folks, it's Neil. Thanks for the training, appreciate it. I do have a question regarding the, I think it was slide 18 on contracts. What specific information are you looking for in those contracts? Because this has been an issue in the past because some of those some of the contract documents are protected, and even staff in the field can't see all of those details that are submitted by the contractor and or subcontractors. I took a screenshot of that slide and sent it over to our lead contract specialist, and he had some concerns because some of the items on the bullet lists are protected.
And we can fill that case by case. At the time we're asking for the information, if there's something that needs to be protected, he is more than welcome to redact that information. However, we'll need enough information to be able to identify that contract was made correctly.
Okay, I think in past instances, I've had to work through the solicitor's office to provide the copies of the contracts to the audits division, and they redacted a lot of the monetary details within the contract, but not the final price when audits were occurring, to make sure we were doing the correct bidding process, trying to get the best bang for the buck. Is that still sufficient in the future?
Sandy?
Yeah, I believe so, as long as we have the final contract amount there, and if we are looking at the bidding documents, then we'll be able to see what the final cost of the contract is. I think it's fine. That should be fine.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we were allowed to send the bidding documents, but we were able to send the final outcome with the final cost. And in the past, that was okay. I'm just wondering, with that list there, it seems to be more than what we were approved to send last time.
Yeah, this is just the the type of list that we usually ask from grantees, and we will work with you if there's any confidential information. And then, like I said in the beginning, if there's something that you cannot provide us, we'll work with you to make sure that we will only ask for the information that is required, and we'll let you know during the audit if there's something that you have constrained and there's an issue that you cannot provide us. We'll work with you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we are going to circle back and see if we can get James, if James still has a question. Go ahead, James. Your mic should be unmuted now. Maybe James still just has his hand up and isn't here. Does anybody else have any other questions? Now is your chance.
And you can always email us, guys, as well if you find that you don't want to ask in a public forum like this. We're more than willing to answer any questions, and even throughout the course of the audit, if we request something and you guys think that is not something that that you want to provide, reach out to us. We can always loop in Matt and team to make sure we can talk about it.
Yes, every grantee has a is unique, and the type of grant that they receive is unique. So the question that come up during the audit, we will address that at that time. And like Jasdeep said, the email address is there. If you have any questions before you get selected for the audit, please send us an email. We'll try our best to provide you the answer.
Yep, and the slide deck will be shared with you guys on the OHMVR website. We tried to add as much information as we could in here. But any feedback is appreciated, and that way we can improve this each time we make this presentation. I think that's it for us. Deb, I'll hand it back over to you.
Okay, if we don't have any other questions at this time, I went ahead and dropped the survey into our chat. So please take a moment before you guys hop off today and fill out that survey. I want to say thank you to our audits team here for putting this presentation on. I know it was one of our most popular trainings that we have had. So like I said, this is recorded. Give us a couple weeks. We're going to get it edited up, put it on our resources website. We will also let you know, we'll send an email out when that is available. We will put the slides, the PowerPoint slides on our resources page. We can email those out too. So I just wanted to thank everybody again for coming today. Everybody go out, be good people. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.